Returning to the fatal protests in Gaza, Palestinian officials say 5 people have been killed today in clashes with Israeli forces at the border there. Well, we want to discuss this more in a moment. I'll be speaking to the Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom, Mark Regev, but first to Ben Jamal, director of the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign. And good to see you both, gentlemen, and Mr. Jamal first. The Israelis, as you know, say that this is all down to Hamas. This is part of them putting forward their agenda of ultimately eradicating Israel. This is part of that.
Okay. Well, I mean, first of all, I think it's useful to establish some facts. We're still gathering information, obviously, on how many people have been killed today and how many injured. When these protests started last Friday, 18 Palestinians were killed, 1,500 were injured, 750 of them by live fire. And it's worth noting that at the end of the day, the Israeli Defense Force put out a tweet across social media saying nothing was uncontrolled, everything was measured and accurate. We know where every bullet landed.
Why are the demonstrations taking place at the border? Why are there attempts to breach that fence? That's why Israel feels threatened. There are people, the Israelis say there are Israelis living within 100 meters of that fence.
There are 2 motivators for the protests, and first of all it's worth saying that these protests are supported by a huge network of NGOs and organisations across the whole swathe of Palestinian society, so they have broad support. There are 2 motivators. The first is a reassertion of the Palestinian right of return. That is the right established in international law of the Palestinians expelled in 1948 and their descendants, and that includes my grandparents who were expelled in 1948, and those expelled in 1967 to return to the homes from which they were expelled. The second motivator is a protest about the conditions in Gaza because of Israel's illegal siege, which is now entering its 11th year. And the UN has said unless the siege is lifted, Gaza will become uninhabitable by 2020. That's why
so it's a
people
plea to get out in the next year. Is that right?
Yeah.
But you didn't address the point that this is orchestrated by Hamas. Are these demonstrations spontaneous?
As I said, these demonstrations are supported by a huge swathe of NGOs and organisations across Palestinian society. Now, Israel is claiming today that it's defending its border. It's worth looking at some facts. I gave the numbers of Palestinians who've been shot and the numbers of Palestinians who've been killed. There's not one single Israeli casualty. These people are being shot from behind a highly securitized fence at the border from several hundred meters away, and they are all being shot on the Palestinian side of that green line border. There are numerous videos that have come out across social media showing Palestinians being shot whilst in the act of praying, showing Palestinians
indeed, but there are also videos showing them being shot, indeed, but in the act of using slingshots to throw rocks and burning tires.
International law is very clear in when is a state justified in using live ammunition and using lethal force. It's very clear. It says that that is justified where there is an imminent risk of life. The UN Human Rights Council today has said that even if Palestinians were attempting to infiltrate the border and there were evidence of them doing that, that would not in itself justify the usage of live fire. But I haven't seen a single piece of evidence yet of one Palestinian actually infiltrating the border.
Ben Jamal, must end it there, and I'm going to put many of those points right away to the Israeli ambassador, Mark Regev, and address that point. And I think an awful lot of people would agree with Ben Jamal there, saying, OK, there is a threat perhaps to the Israeli border. They've got rocks and burning tyres, and you've got high-velocity rifles. That is a disproportionate response.
I disagree. Obviously, we prefer to use, at the beginning, crowd control mechanisms like tear gas and rubber bullets. We don't want to see people killed. But if you have people, nevertheless, who are approaching the fence with explosives to destroy the fence or to damage the fence in a way that will allow hostile infiltration, as you yourself said, we've got Israeli civilian communities, we've got farms, we've got homesteads very, very close to that border. If we allow Hamas people to come into Israel and kill our civilians, we would be irresponsible. We have to protect that border fence.
Killing them the other side of the fence.
The point is we can't allow them to come into Israel and kill our people. These are, and let's be clear, the overwhelming majority of the fatalities have been activists in the military wings of Hamas or Islamic Jihad. That's been documented already. These are not peaceful protesters. Under the cover of the riot, they are seeking to damage that border fence, which is a crucial protective mechanism.
I mean, they know the lethal force, and they've seen it so many times. And we've had this discussion, you and I, for so many years. They know full well the lethal force that Israel can bring to bear on them. They are not attempting, in this rather unsubtle manner, unarmed, to mount an invasion of Israel.
There have been, over the last few weeks and in the last few days, there are continual attempts by Hamas and Islamic Jihad to infiltrate into Israel and kill civilians. That is documented. That is clear. Why are they attacking the fence? If this is just protests, and they were protesting inside the Gaza Strip, we wouldn't do anything. Why are they doing it at the border? Why are they rushing the fence? Why are they trying to storm into Israel?
So you really translates the precursor to a mass invasion?
They are not a mass invasion. That's overstating the point. But there's no doubt that they want to have terrorists come in from Gaza into Israel to kill our people.
But they've got tunnels for that. You know that better than I do. That's how they infiltrate.
And we've been using new technology, thank goodness, which can prevent their tunneling. But it's important that the viewers understand, what is Hamas? They're not some peace movement. They're not some Palestinian human rights movement. Hamas, in its charter, says, my country should be destroyed. And they also say that every Israeli civilian, man, woman and child, is a legitimate target. You know, Hamas isn't just considered a terrorist organization by Israel. It's by the UK's, is officially classified, by the European Union, by Canada, by Japan.
I understand your analysis by that, but I mean, you're talking then about international organizations, and it would be hard to believe to see any other nation that says that it lives by the rule of international law, as of course Israel does, to be in breach of it. I mean, you heard Ben Jamal there saying the United Nations has been quite clear that this use of lethal force against unarmed protesters is not legal.
My friend Ben spoke about the UN Human Rights Council, which we've said and the British government has said. The British government has said is biased in an anti-Israel way, in an extreme, in a very extreme way. No one believes the UN Human Rights Council is unfortunately objective. Not any serious person.
And can I just ask you, I mean, if this happens again next Friday, same response from Israel, no moderation in the response?
We don't want to see these violent riots. We don't want to see acts of infiltration. And this violence can stop immediately if Hamas says enough. And we hope they do.
Ambassador, thank you very much indeed, Mark Reger.
Thanks for having me.